side. I'm just going to kind of highlight the most used ones. So the first tool is the Move tool. As you can see, I have a background picture I pulled off Adobe stock. So if I hit Command 0, it'll fit the screen. I'm going to go to File, Place Embedded, and this allows me to pick a picture or an object or whatever and place it inside of the artboard. So I'm going to resize this thing, something like that. And again, if you come outside of the image, you can see there's an option to tilt it. So you can tilt if you need to, and click enter, and there we go. So over here on the right, you can see there's a background layer. That's this. And then there's my image that we just placed. You can always hide the layer if you need to see what it is. If you want to rename it, you just double click and you can retype whatever you want. It's great to stay organized. Alright, so there's our picture. Again, I have the Move tool selected and I'm on the picture layer. So if I grab the picture, I can move it around. The next thing I want to show you, real quick. So as you move it around, you'll see it kind of jumps. If you want more control, you can hold down the control button and it'll be a little smoother. Instead of jumping like this, it'll give you a little more refined control. Okay? So control button for more control. Makes sense. The next three things have to do with making selections. So if I click on this one, this allows me to draw a square. So like if I drew over an area of brick like this, I now have a rectangle. If you want to make a perfect square, then while you're dragging it, you hold down the Shift key and it will make a perfect square. Just like that. To deselect, you're going to hit Command D. If I right click or long hold on this, you can see there's also other tools embedded in this area. In this case, there's something you can use to make an elliptical, or if you hold down Shift again, you can make a perfect circle. Command D to deselect. So that's that one. Next one is a Lasso tool. This one allows you to loosely draw selections. It's great when you're just trying to make a rough selection that doesn't matter as much. You just want something quick. That's a great way to do it. Another one that's in this area that I use a lot is the polygonal lasso tool. This allows you to make straight lines. So if I wanted to select this picture frame, for example, I can just click on the corners and it will draw straight lines between each of the points that I click. When you're done, you can basically double click and it will connect where you started, like that. And that's roughly an outline of the picture frame. So now if I wanted to affect just the picture frame, I could. For example, I'm going to invert the selection using Command Shift I. You can also go to Select and let's see, Inverse, and it will change. So select Inverse. Now it's choosing everything but the picture frame. And then if I wanted to, I can grab like an adjustment of some type and I can make it a little darker. So it'll affect everything but what I have not selected. So anyway, yeah, so that is how to do a selection. Let me go ahead and deselect. I'm just going to drag this layer that we just made to the trash. So that's that one. Let's see, this particular selection, these are like more automatic selection tools. So the first one's called Object Selection Tool. This one, if I'm clicked on a layer, like in this case the background, it will analyze the background and try to find objects to automatically select. So here it sees that there's a picture frame, there's a plant, there's the table, and there's like this hourglass thing. So if I click this, give it a second, it will automatically select this so that you don't have to. So it's nice, it's a convenience. I'm going to hit Command D to deselect. If I choose the next one, the Quick Select tool, this one will allow me to make selections based on color. So sometimes it does a great job, other times it doesn't. So in this case, the thing I'm selecting and the background are the same color, so it kind of got confused what I was trying to select. So in this case, it wasn't great. Like I said, often you'll use a combination of selection tools. So you might do what you can with one tool and then fix it with another. In this case, for example, if I wanted to go back to that polygonal lasso tool, I can come up here and instead of making a single selection or adding to a selection, so like this one would allow me to make more selection and it'll keep my original one. This will allow me to take away from a selection. So if I start selecting like this area, for example, it will now remove it. It'll take it away from my selection. And then this allows you to make just a selection of where two selections intersect. So you'll see it just kept this area because that's where they intersected. If you use this one, then you can only make one selection at a time. So if you start a new selection, it'll just get rid of the old one. Command D to deselect. Alright, so that's selections. There's a whole bunch of things you can do with selections. I'm not even going to start to get into that here. So we're again focused on the tools. Next thing I'm going to talk about is the crop tool. Just like you can imagine, you can just drag in and create your own custom crop size. Just like that. Just hit enter and there you go. If you want to be more specific, I'm going to go, let me see, I'm going to hit Command Z to undo, Command 0 to fit to screen. So now we're back to where we started. You can come up here and there's different ways if you wanted to make like a ratio. Like I want the long side to always be 2 times longer than the short edge. Then it will keep this ratio as you crop. So you hear sometimes like 16 by 9 as a video dimension. So if you put 16 by 9 up there, then you can keep that ratio the same and come up with a still image of that size. There's also width, height, and resolution. So if I wanted to make a 5 by 7 at 300 pixels per inch, you could do that. But look what it did. It put 5 pixels. I want 5 inches by not 7 pixels, but 7 inches. Now it's going to help me create a 5 by 7 out of this. So if I hit enter, now I have a 5 by 7, 300 pixels per inch. I'm going to hit Command 0 to fit to screen, and there we go. The next tool is called the Perspective Crop Tool. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this layer right here. So here's another image where someone took a picture of a sign, and it's kind of crooked because they weren't standing directly in front of it. So the Perspective Crop Tool would be good for like trying to straighten it. So for example, I come in here and I'm just gonna kind of come in and move each of the edges so that we can get a better representation of the object. So let's see, let's do something like that. Alright, I think that's pretty good. So now, if I hit enter, it will attempt to straighten it. So there you go. Let's see, so that's the Perspective Crop Tool. Let me go down to here. You already saw how you can use the eyedropper to select colors. So here I have a green in my swatch. If I click in the sky, then it pulls that color. If I choose like this pink color, it will select that. Another tool here is the ruler tool. You can use this to straighten horizons. So like this picture is crooked. So if I draw a line with the ruler, and then I come up and I click straighten layer, it will straighten the image. And then you can just come in and crop the parts that are missing. The other thing you can do is you can try to recreate the missing pixels. That's what we'll talk about the next tool. So the next tool I'm going to start off with is the spot healing brush tool. It's just like a paintbrush. I'm going to use the bracket keys to make it smaller or bigger. And you just paint the area of the picture that you want Photoshop to try to figure out how to correct, and it will attempt to replace that. So I can go in, instead of cropping the picture, I can just highlight these areas of missing information, and Photoshop will go in and fill them in. It does a pretty decent job. Looks like there's still somewhat of a line there. Okay, well, it did a decent job. Let's see how it does with this tree over here. Okay, not too bad. So there's an example of the spot healing brush tool. Another place you can use this is like if you were trying to, let's see, if you're trying to fix blemishes. So oftentimes you can come in and you can just remove a blemish by just selecting it. Another tool in this area is called the patch tool. The patch tool is good for like, it's also making corrections, but instead of Photoshop trying to figure out what to pick to replace it, you can grab this area and you can drag and pick something that resembles it. So like that kind of skin is close to this, and I let go and now it fixed it. You can do bigger areas too. So like if I was to select this whole area and drag it to an area that's not damaged, let go, it will blend those together, and now the blemishes are gone. So let me get rid of that one. Here's an image where I have these 4 people. I'm going to zoom in, hold down the space bar so I can click and drag around. If I make a selection around this guy, let's see. If there's something in an image that's a distraction or something that you don't want, you can just make a selection around it. And if you want Photoshop to automatically delete the object, you just click delete, and different options come up. You can fill it in with white, 50% gray, black. I'm going to keep this content aware up, and you can see Photoshop will try to replace that person. Of course, it's not perfect, so you can come in and fix it. I'm going to hold spacebar to kind of move around. I'm going to grab that spot healing brush we just talked about. Let's see, right here. I'm going to shrink that down a little bit, and I can see that area is not very good. And this area kind of looks a little blurry. That looks better. If there's other areas of the photo you want to fix, like you don't want these lines in there, you can just select them, and it will take them out. So anyway, that is those tools. The paintbrush is pretty simple. I already kind of showed you that. You just pick a color that you want. The default is black and white. You can double click this swatch on top and pull up the color picker, and then choose any color that you want, and you can paint. Again, use the bracket keys to change the size, just like that. If you want to make more of a particular type of shape, you can make a selection. So I'm going to hold down the shift button to make a perfect circle. And now if I use my brush tool, inside of here it will only color inside of the circle. So now I have a red dot. So I'm going to deselect with Command D. Here's my move tool. And you can see I have, oh, I painted that on the background. Okay, well, anyway, I was going to move it around, but it has to be in its own layer for that to happen. So if I hit undo and go back and make a new layer and then brush it in. Okay, so now the red dot is in its own layer. Now I can hit deselect, and when I move it, I can move it around the picture because it's separate from the background. Text. So if I grab the text tool, you saw how I used this earlier. If I change this to like 100-point font, you can just type. I'm going to change this back to left align. Grab the move tool, and there we go. Let's say that you wanted to create an outline of letters. So like if you right click right here where the text tool is, you can see that there's like horizontal or vertical typing, or there's horizontal or vertical masks. If you were to select this and you type, okay, it now makes a selection of words. So if you were only interested in making a selection, you can do that. I'm going to hit deselect. I don't need this layer anymore. Alright, this is another picture where that spot healing brush could be used. Like if you just wanted to get rid of some of the cracks, you could do that. It did a pretty decent job. I'll have to come back in and fill this one just like that. So it works on all different types of areas. Just like that. Alright. Let's see. The eraser tool is just like it sounds. If you have a layer, and let's say that I brushed red on here, and then I grab the eraser tool, then you can erase different areas. If I was to double click on this locked background, see the lock icon, just rename it. Now it's not locked. I could come in and erase different parts of the actual background photo. So let's see, what else would I want to show you? The history brush right here. This allows you to, just like a brush, bring back original pixels. So if I start painting, it will bring back whatever used to be there. So it's like the opposite of the erase tool. Let's see, the paint bucket tool I showed you before. Let's see, some of these other ones we're probably not going to use as much. Down here is the color swatches. You can click this black and white small little bit to reset them. You can pick any colors you want. You just double click. If you want to, pick a color, you can just select it like that. If you know, like for example, the RGB values, you can type in exactly the color you're after. And then if you want, you can add a color to your swatches and give it a name. And you'll see it'll appear in your swatches. Give it just a second. Okay, so I'm gonna click OK. So now if I click up in my swatches, you'll see that the purple I just saved is up here. So now I have easy access to it. And you can see it's selected now, it's down here in my swatch colors. Let's see. I think that's probably a decent place. The only other thing I would show is if I was to pull back open that first picture. Let's see. And let's say I made a selection of one of the bricks. Just like that. There's another tool. Let's see. It's under the clone stamp tool. It's called the pattern stamp tool. If I choose this, there's different patterns that are like presets. So like here's grass, trees, and water. I'm going to just choose grass. You can also create your own patterns. And then once you do that, once you start painting, you can paint that pattern. And there you go. You got some grass. Let's see. Another thing I want to show you is the clone stamp tool. So if there's an area of the photo, then you just basically want to copy it. You can hold down the option button wherever you want it to start and click. And now if I start painting, it will, you can see the little crosshairs up on the original part. It will paint that area in down here. So I can basically use it to like erase brick lines. I can use it to transfer different areas of a photo to another area, or kind of like make a copy of things. So if there was a button or some kind of embellishment and you wanted to just make a second one, you could easily just copy it. If I wanted to, like I said, just get rid of brick lines, I can choose like this area. I'm going to hold down Option, and then I can paint over the brick line and it will copy where you see the crosshairs. And now the brick line's gone. I can choose this area to copy from, cover up this brick line. It kind of looks a little repetitive if you're not careful, so you have to, be intentional with what you are copying. But it's a useful tool, especially when you're doing like refined work. Okay, so that's probably a decent overview. There's not too many other things that I think you would use. This one is for like shapes. You can just draw a shape, hold down Shift if you want. It will make a shape and fill it in with the color. Let's see, and then this particular tool allows you to just kind of move around. You can do the same thing if you just have like the spacebar. So I'm going to go back to the move tool. If you just hold down the spacebar, it allows you to do the same thing. So if you're zoomed in, you can kind of navigate your way around with the hand. And then this particular one, if you scroll left and right, you can zoom in and out quicker. So that's the magnifying glass. I think that's it. I'm going to stop right there. I think from here, now you kind of have an idea of this left panel. I think I might take a little bit of time and talk about some adjustments, and then I'd like to start recreating like a different scrapbooking project. So until next time.